So my name is Tim, and I'm going to be covering what a normal random variable is. Okay, so what is a normal random variable? Well, it's actually part of the continuous random variable family, and all of these problems are in order to find these problems, it involves you finding the random variable. In all of these questions, you're gonna have to understand what a normal curve is, and it's all of these questions are gonna be involving a normal curve. And what a normal curve is, I'm gonna draw it right here, and it's just a regular bell curve. All of these normal curves, the mean is always going to, which is the middle of the curve, is always going to be 0. The area underneath the curve, all of this, is always going to be 1. And also in these normal curves, you're always 3 standard deviations away from the mean. So 1, 2, 3, and -1, -2, and -3. So it's very tip. It's going to be -3 and 3. The mean, the middle is always going to be 0, and the area under the curve is always going to be 1. Be doing some practice problems. Some of the common questions you're going to be asked is find the probability of z is less than or more than, and then it's going to say the z-score. So the ones we're going to be doing is find the probability of z is less than 1.22 and find the probability of z is more than 1.22. So the first things you gotta understand in these kind of problems is that because we're using a normal curve, all of these are going to share the fact that the mean is always going to be 0, the middle, and the points we're always going to be 3 standard deviations away from the middle, from the mean, which is why the endpoints are always going to be -3 and 3. So for the first problem, find the probability of z is less than 1.22. So in order to find this, you should probably draw out the curve that I just drew above or on the right side. And we're going to draw a line that's going to be 1.22. That's going to represent 1.22. So 1.22 on the curve, I think it's going to look around here. This is just like me guesstimating. So since it says less than 1.22, when it says less than, it always means we're trying to find the left side of the curve. So what this problem is asking is we're trying to find over here. So in order to find this, when it's less than, it's always easy because what you have to do, and all you have to do is to look at the z sheet, which I'm going to put in the description below, and you just got to go over to 1.22, and if you do that correctly, then you should get 0.8888. Now for the next problem, find the probability of z is more than 1.22. So this is going to be the same point. So I'm going to keep the z 1.22 line, but this time it's asking for the right side, which is what the more than refers to. Okay, so this time we're looking for the right side of the curve. Now the best way to think about this is, okay, how do I find the right side of the curve? The best way to is you subtract the whole graph, which is always going to be equal to 1, and then you subtract it with whatever is on the left side of the curve. Because if you subtract what's the whole graph and the left side, you're going to end up with the right side, which is what we want. So we've already figured out that the whole graph equals to 1, and this is given for every single one of these problems that you're going to be encountering. And then we have to subtract it with the left side, which we already figured out on the first problem, which is 0.888. And this is going to equal to 0.12. So that's going to be the answer. Another way you can look at this is this. If you actually look on the z sheet, This at this point, if you try to look for it, is actually the same as negative 1.22. So another way of looking at this is that this point is the same as saying, this problem is the same thing as saying z is less than negative 1.22. For the next problem, it's going to get a little bit more difficult. So we're going to say find the probability of negative 1.58 is less than z and less than 2.24. Okay, so in all of these problems, like we mentioned, we draw out the curve, the normal curve. So the center is going to be 0, the endpoints are going to be negative 3 and 3. So 2.24. Actually, here, let me fix it a little bit. So normal curves are always going to look like more like, okay, that's a lot better. So 2.24, that's probably going to be around right here. And negative 1.58. That's probably going to be around right here. Okay, so the most important thing to think about is that in these between questions, or these less than, the z is more, negative 1.58 is less than z, and then z is less than 2.24. All of these questions are trying to say, are going to be asking, what's the area under the curve between these 2 points? What's the area between the 2 points? So in order to find this, first we're going to determine, so 2.24. In order to get this whole thing, we're going to have to find what z is less than 2.24. So if you think about this in this way, 2.24, so it's going to be equal to 0.9875. Okay, so right now we're trying to find the area between the curve, and we found out that this whole thing right here is 0.9875. Now, a lot of people are going to think that since it says P, these between questions, people are going to read this and they're going to think, oh, you're trying to find the probability of z is more than negative 1.58. But if you actually try to look for that, if you look at what P, the z is more than negative 1.58, that's saying, okay, even if we found it, we're subtracting it with this. So if you try to find that, if you subtract the blue and the red, what we're going to eventually get is this part. And that's not what we're looking for. Our main goal is to find what's in here. So if you want to find what's in here, and we've already found what the blue is, what we got to try to find is this. So this question doesn't read like P. I know in this it looks like it says, okay, z is more than negative 1.58, but this is actually asking, in order to find this area under the curve, we're trying to find z is less than negative 1.58. Because if you do that, what we're doing is we're subtracting the blue with the red, and then we get the green, which is exactly what we want. So what's P is less than negative 1.58, we say? It is 0.0571. And you can just find that looking for negative 1.58 on the z curve. Okay, so all we have to do now is, since we have these points, we subtract these two, and the answer is going to be 0.9304. You're going to be encountering story problems later on, and it's going to be, they give you the mean, the standard deviation, and the random variable, and you just have to do the same things as the earlier problems, except you have a new formula, which is finding a z-score, which is x minus mean divided by standard deviation. It works out exactly like the other problems, so you probably don't have to worry about it. But yeah, that's it for me. So thank you for watching.